Hello and welcome back once again to another episode of The Bare Soul. I'm Steve Young.
I'm Tish Needs Vicky.
And I am Rick Stutler.
Today we would like to talk to you about the topic of your own energy and what that means. So when we get to the essence of ourselves and we're looking at our own energy, and then we look at energy coming from other people, how do we differentiate between what's ours and what's theirs? I think an important place to start is having that conscious awareness that there's somebody else's energy in our field.
Yes. So if you're watching this and wondering, how am I going to tell, or what does this even mean? Just by knowing that we could get other people's energy caught within ours, I think can be a very big and beneficial thing for people. The way that I see it, a theory, is that we are all born with the same amount of energy, and this energy we are going to have for eternity. So if you believe in past lives, for example, each life we go into, we have the same amount of energy. During the course of one's lifetime, we may be inadvertently picking up energy from others, and then we may feel as though we feel weighed down or bogged down with life, and it may be because we're just not aware of the fact that we're carrying energy that isn't ours. So then just by hearing this could bring you conscious awareness of, oh, I wonder if that's what's going on with me. So when you're consciously aware, then you can start asking, it's your energy. Nobody has control over your energy besides you. So you can start asking yourself the question of, am I holding on to something? And part of this with empaths, I like to let my clients and students know, as empaths, we can learn to be compassionate without being empathic. In other words, we don't have to bring on their emotions or feel their emotions in order to be compassionate, because we're already dealing enough with our own. And there are benefits to also being empathic. I'm not saying necessarily somebody has to stop doing that 100% of the time, but it can help us to start balancing out our own energy when we aren't into somebody. And that's a little different, because then it's like we are into somebody else's energy. I see that different, as opposed to somebody has given us their energy inadvertently. Although I guess it could work that way too. But so, am I making sense?
Yes, and I'll start off with an example of working at the end backwards to your own energy. As an empath, I identify as an empath, and if I have had an experience where somebody has come to me to vent about a problem that they're having in their life, and I literally feel inside of me the sensations of the emotions that they're going through, but I'm not consciously aware. I, in the past, have looked at that as, I'm feeling this feeling inside of me and these emotions inside of me. I need to do something about this because I don't like the way it feels. So I would take responsibility for how I'm feeling inside and want to address or fix that problem. Now, if that problem is pertaining to the person that's talking to me, suddenly I wanted to take responsibility for the problem that they're having in their life so that I could fix the feeling inside of me and feel better.
Right, let them feel better, I feel better.
And coming to the conscious awareness that prior to them engaging with me in this conversation, I didn't feel that way inside. Or having them within proximity to me, for example, I didn't feel that way inside. And seeing that difference, now I can say, the moment I connected with this person, I started feeling this way. That's not my energy, that's not my emotion, that's not my problem per se. And knowing from that point forward of, I can tap into what my energy is at any given moment when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling aligned, when I feel like I'm on the top of my game or at the peak of how I would want to be running on a daily basis. Then addressing the energies that come into my bubble, so to speak, as the day progresses, to get a feeling of what was mine before this came versus how this is entering into my world now, so that I can then look at that and say, I have compassion for what this person is going through, and I can even say to a certain extent that I'm walking the mile in their shoes because I can feel the emotion, but not accept responsibility for it and not take on the role of fixing it for them.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a double-pronged situation, because that's like an extension of the empathy. Besides feeling it, now we're getting busy trying to fix that so that we can get rid of it from our own energy. When we recognize that it's their own journey, right? That we are prolonging their own healing journey if we're trying to just step in and fix things. But what I like to tell students and clients is, if you are an empath, so giving you some real world things that you can do at home is, this is what I suggest, is when you wake up in the morning or before you go out to work, or even if you work in the afternoon, before you take off, set the intention that you are surrounding yourself in divine light, with the intention, my energy only is within this space. And then at the end of your work day, because some of us have higher stress jobs than others do, and the empathy, that shifts person to person as well. So what I suggest is, at the end of the work day, for example, before you get in your car, if you think about it, before you even get in your car, just imagine that light that you've placed around you just releasing and going into the earth. So you are literally leaving it right there in the parking lot. And then you can surround yourself again with energy. And when you do it in the morning or before you go to work, again, setting the intention, because you are the only person responsible for your energy, for your soul, for your spirit, however you perceive it. So when you are making that declaration, that intention, it doesn't mean that all of it's going to stay out, but you may find as an empath that a lot less gets into your energy. Now let's say you get home and you feel like, oh, there's this customer, maybe I work retail, and this customer today, she still got into my energy, or he got into my energy today. Here's what I suggest, is to mentally scan your body. You're asking the question, am I holding on? And if so, where am I holding on to the energy of, and obviously you'll know who this person is, because even if you don't know their name, you had the interaction. So am I holding on to this person's energy? Scan from head to toes. Cross your shoulders down your arms and your hands. Now some people will, maybe they feel it in the chest first, or they feel it in the gut, and they may stop there. I'm going to ask you to continue to scan your whole body, because sometimes we'll feel the tension behind the face. We may notice that our hands, our fists are clenched, or the toes are tightened. So scan your whole body, because you just asked yourself, where am I holding on to the energy of this person? Now your body is responding to you. And then you can go in and set the intention. This is what I say, you'll find the words that are right for you, but this energy isn't mine, and it's like I'm scooping it out, I lovingly release it. This energy isn't mine, I lovingly release it. And I'm sending it into the earth. So whether you want to scoop it out, pull it out, your mind and body will know what to do until you can feel that shift. Now, if there's something a little bit deeper, because maybe that person said, you shouldn't even be working here, and it hit you on a more personal level of, maybe it's your value, your worth, something to that extent, that's going to be a little bit different, because that's going to go to a core issue, maybe a core belief that you have about your own value. So then that energy won't be as quick to be released.
And you can tell that difference because that negative talk comes from within. When it's hitting a value of yours, an insecurity of yours that's saying, based off of what they're saying to me, I'm feeling this way about myself internally. That's where you can differentiate where that energy comes from. Your inner being's never going to talk negatively to you. So if you're hearing a negative voice inside of your head, inside of you, you know that that's an area of opportunity for yourself, within yourself. And also to get to a place of tapping into scanning your own body, you may have to go to a place in solitude, whether that's into a forest or meditating in a room with nobody else in it, a place where you can kind of reset and get back to that 0 point of balance to say, There's nobody else around me right now, and I'm setting the intention that I am with just myself right now. That way you can kind of get a baseline of your own energy. That way when you do this scan, it's you and only you through that intention.
Yeah, and I think we're really unaware of how many times a day this happens to us. But then again, there's also the positive side. Sometimes people make you feel good. And that's also when you get, your heart feels good, or you feel powerful in your solar plexus or whatever. It's just learning how to differentiate the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you will. You can have positive ones too, but no, it's just so many of us just get hit with this stuff every single day, multiple times a day, and I really wonder if some of us are aware of what's actually going on.
And some believe anxieties. I know for myself, growing up, I didn't know what an empath was when I was a kid or a young adult. And I swear that's where a lot of my anxieties stemmed from, because I was picking up, especially going into places like concerts or the mall, because there was all this energy. And so for some of us, that can be anxiety inducing, because again, I already have my own stuff, right? And then now other people's. And the good stuff, and that's the other side of being an empath too, is because, we can feel the joy right there with them, right? But that is just, it's a different energy, and most of us aren't stopping to pay that the kind of attention as the unpleasant stuff. Because with me, that high energy, one of the things, talking here tonight is being able to release that energy. And something that came to mind here recently is that if we are born with a certain amount of energy, we have that same energy across lifetimes, so for eternity. Then when we are releasing things, we're actually releasing, getting rid of, right? Offloading other people's energy. And then what remains then is our own energy, and we may still have blockages in there. And even the energy that we have taken on from others may not release so easily as I was talking about this earlier, using an example that if a child was being yelled at by a parent, there may be a little tinge of that energy in the soul, but no real big deal. But then if a child continues to get yelled at, that energy, it's like it's compacting, compounding. And when somebody's being yelled at, if we are tensing, which is a common thing to do, it's almost like we are compacting that energy. So it's compounding and compacting. And then we go on to school, maybe a teacher yells at us, maybe it's a friend or a classmate. We get into adulthood and it's a boss or a coworker. And then it's like that energy continues to grow, where all of a sudden our energy isn't flowing as freely because there's a blockage. And being able to go in and recognize, okay, you know what, my solar plexus, after being consciously aware and learning about the chakra system, boy, this one really feels like I may have a blockage here. And then it's going in to look at that energy to pull out, to release other people's energy, and then to start working with your own for healing to get to the root.
And not only that, once that energy is transmuted, your energy stays the same. You don't lose anything because you can't. And the energy that's being transmuted is energy, so it's always there. The energy you're born with.
And I kind of feel like I may be stepping a little ahead, because if we're releasing that which isn't ours, then the energy that's left, it's going through a transmutation. And I was talking with the guys earlier about the atom with the electrons and the protons and the neutrons, and taking an unpleasant experience from the past and neutralizing, transmuting the energy to where it's neutralized. So it's not like erasing the experience that we've had from the past, it just neutralizes it.
And I want to jump back real quick to the compounding of the energy. You can kind of look at it like adding on continual layers of clothes. So this conditioning that gets applied to us, we're just throwing on more clothes and more clothes and more clothes, and maybe those are costumes or uniforms for work. I'm a police officer, now I'm a fireman, but it's all adding up, and you start feeling heavy on your body. You have all these layers of clothes on you, and you're like, who am I? I don't know who I am. I don't know what's mine, because I thought I was this police officer, and I thought I was this fireman, and I thought I was this and that and the other thing. And it's that process of releasing those layers of clothes until you get back down to your birthday suit, until you're back down to the core of who you are, and reconnecting with that.
And not only that, as you guys were saying earlier, you feel, say like if somebody says something off base to you or whatever, you feel the heaviness of that, what they said. So that tells you right away that, well, this isn't mine. You know, and what I was kind of alluding to a while ago, some of us don't even know when that's happening. But hopefully through this session we're having tonight, you can realize and recognize those things when they do happen. And just like you said, like the emperor loses his clothes kind of deal, maybe not, but it's like you do find out who you are, and not only that, but for all that heaviness to come on you, you feel it, and you know it's not yours. But when the joy comes, you just kind of let it happen because it makes you feel good.
And when I know for myself in my own healing journey, realizing this isn't even mine. This isn't even mine. And being able to offload that, I literally felt lighter. It's what I help people with, whether we're in class or in session, to release this, because we're carrying the weight from others. So, and none of us are perfect. We all dump on others, and we've all been dumped on, or practically everybody has been, right? So we're both the dump or and the dump E. And so by lightening the load, by recognizing what isn't ours, getting that off there. But when you're talking about when it hurts the heart, that may be as simple as somebody said something derogatory about me, and if I'm personalizing, it's going to hurt the heart more.
Yeah.
But it may be that it just triggered something from more of a deeper root cause of to go in there. Because when we're really steady on our feet about who we are, we're confident, and confident is not arrogance, confidence is not cockiness. This is one of the things I wish we could, I hope evolves with us humans. It's like there's just something about people who are confident, and I've done this in the past myself, so it's not like I'm judging a bunch of people, but I've been there, where when I've been less confident and I've seen somebody who is confident walk through the door, I may get busy judging that person or saying something derogatory. It's okay to be confident. It's good to be confident. And again, that doesn't mean that you're arrogant. It doesn't mean that you feel as though you're better than anybody else. You're confident with who you are. That getting down to the birthday suit, right? So when one is confident with who they are, then when somebody makes a derogatory comment, when I know that it isn't true, it just doesn't have the arrows. It doesn't have the penetration.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the power to affect. Now, in some of those times, I may have the compassion for the other person, because recognizing hurt people, and I still do it because, I still have hurts to deal with, but that can help to put it into perspective too, I think.
Yeah, and just like the recognizing of what's yours and not yours. And when we talked a little bit about the transmuting of the energy there for the personal aspect of your own growth and healing, versus the releasing of what's not yours, so that it can be addressed by the other party or by something else in the universe. When you talk about the heaviness of releasing, I've used the analogy before of carrying around a large sack on your shoulder all the time of everybody else's issues, problems, emotions, feelings, and just that sense of letting go of this 50-pound bag that's been over your
Liberation.
shoulder the
Yeah.
whole time, and you've done nothing more than releasing your hand, figuratively, literally, and how it feels like you've elevated internally back to a good feeling state. Just that alone lets you know that you are carrying something that you weren't meant to carry for any longer than it took you to learn that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you kind of feel lighter. You don't feel like you're burdened down with anything, which I think is pretty cool.
And that the burden, the heaviness, could serve as the internal nudge for us to recognize that I'm carrying something heavy, and so what am I carrying that may not belong to me? So how can I cleanse the energy? This is my terminology anyway. How can I cleanse the energy of my soul and release their other people's stuff? Some of it may be very easy to do. It is, we talked about earlier, if there was somebody at work that said something and kind of left you feeling a little off, where you can scoop and release, but they're the deeper ones. With Steve talking about these learning lessons, that was a big thing in my life, and I still catch myself trying to save other people. Like I can see what's coming, so I'm getting up ahead of it, like, whoa, slow down, and then it's, especially if it's a family member, somebody close to me, and pulling back and knowing that this is, especially if they're not coming to me and asking me for help, it's none of my business, right? So allowing them to learn their lessons in life is it's difficult, especially as a mom, as a parent, as a grandma, whatever the role may be, and for me, I see it as a retraction of my energy. So from that which I've been putting out, pulling my energy back, because they didn't ask for my energy no more than I asked for anybody else's.
But as an empath, that's really tough to do, because you want to help people.
That's where
you retract your energy.
Yeah.
That's where there's that differentiation between enabling and doing something for somebody and supporting them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And supporting can be done in several different ways,
Mm-hmm.
including just holding space for somebody to say, I'm going to let you fall off this bike and get hurt, but I'm still here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Versus saying, I'm going to stop you from falling off of this bike and getting hurt. Now you haven't learned that lesson of balance on the bike, and it's going to happen again until...
I know as a parent, I've been through terror how many times in my life watching my kids, knowing and trying to guide them, saying, don't do this, you're going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, like you said, let them learn that lesson.
It's human nature for us, as we aim to survive all the time, to want to prevent bad things from happening to other people, but it just prolongs the inevitable in any case that I can think of. If we are to jump in to try to be Superman in a situation where it's a life lesson playing out for somebody else, they have to have this experience, and then they have to determine how they feel about the experience, and then they have to determine where they want to go from there on their own.
So it is a retraction of energy. So when you feel as though you've sent yours out, retract the energy. It's a release of other people's, a transmutation of your own. Yeah. So, and just by being consciously aware is huge.
Very huge.
Yeah.
And again, to emphasize, if you're releasing their energy, you're not necessarily saying, I want nothing to do with you or nothing to do with this situation. You're not saying, I'm putting up this wall that separates me from you because I'm better than you. You are still giving support in some form or fashion, even though you're releasing this energy that says, at the base, we're connected. I have love for you. I have compassion for you. So you're not completely taking yourself out of the picture, even down to your inner being.
Yeah, the nuances, right? Compassion, empathy. Doing something for somebody, being a support system while they do it for themselves. Anything else you guys want to add with that?
Pardon my ignorance, but when we talked about transmuting, did we ever talk about methods of transmuting?
So to me, the way that I see this with transmutation is when I was talking about the example of maybe a customer who came into the store, maybe the customer said something really derogatory that may have triggered my value, my worth. The healing process is what will transmute that energy, the love, the kindness. Here's another thing that can help to transmute that energy, is a shift of perspective. Sometimes just a simple shift of perspective where we're like, oh, that will automatically transmute energy within us because we just saw something from a different perspective, and now things are clear, and then there's this transmutation of the energy where we don't feel so uptight, we don't feel so upset about things. It just automatically shifts. So for me, it's healing. So the loving kindness for self, recognizing that this is a journey. That okay, you know what? I took the time. I'm sitting with this energy because from that customer today, I realized that this is a self-value issue. So where am I feeling it? And it may be a few different chakras. It may be a few different places on my body. And honestly, I literally do this as part of my own healing. I could spend hours in a day locked in my room just doing healing. And I will literally write down each one of those as a bullet point, wherever I felt that the energy of, in this case, we're talking about self-value. And then I will go to each body part or each chakra to go even deeper about, is there memory there? Am I getting any images? What's coming up in that chakra or within that body part? I will think about what the body part represents. There was a time, I've shared this with people before, where I felt as though there was a tornado moving through, I think it was my solar plexus. And forgive me for you science buffs, I guess you don't have to be a science buff, it just wasn't my thing. So I pulled out my smartphone and looked up what gets rid of tornadoes, like how do they stop? So I looked that up and I used the imagery from that to bring, I think it was something with cold air or something up underneath it, the tornado or something. So I was using that kind of imagery to help, but literally by going in there, by sitting with it, by understanding it. When I'm doing inner child work, I will have my inner child in front of me and have a conversation with her. And this kind of goes to when we were talking about ego before, bringing ego up in front. What are you trying to tell me? How can I help you? Because it's getting my attention for a reason. So likewise, when I am consciously aware and I know that I've got this self-worth issue, whatever it may be, then I can sit with it for something that is so deep, for something such as self-worth, self-value. That is something that may take longer. You may get a quick and easy release. It may be a shift of perspective, and all of a sudden, your account of value, your bank account, so to speak, it is just endless. It's priceless because you are. Other times it is a slow and steady, or it's whatever it is for you, a progression of working through fits and starts because life happens in between. But each of those then can become like a little nudge for us of what to pay attention to in our everyday life of, you know what, I've been working on this is coming up, this is what I'm going to do instead, or I realize that this isn't mine, this is theirs, and it's a process to kind of delineate that as well.
So that gets back to, with transmutation, it's really the shifting of the energy from a lower emotional state to a higher emotional state, all within you as part of your healing.
A neutralization and or we can use that as a higher, depending on what it is.
And because we're all unique, it takes exploration and experimentation with tools to figure out what works for you to transmute your own energy. That could be journaling to release an angry
Journaling is
state.
awesome.
You know, where you're expressing this anger or whatever the feeling is that's holding you down out on the paper, and maybe you even burn the paper afterwards.
That's a good idea.
Just to release it, and then feel the shift inside of you happening. Or if it's going to the gym and exercising to release energy itself. Whatever the tool is that you might use, you'll have to figure out what works best for you, but you might not know what that is until you try them.
I'm going to double back real quick to Steve's words about like the internal dialogue. That takes up a whole lot of energy. Takes up a lot of one's energy to be caught in the rat race of one's own negative internal dialogue. You know, I'm this, I'm that, I'm not good enough here, I'm too this, I'm not enough of that. We expend a lot of energy doing that. And when we can slow down that internal dialogue, one of the things I like to do is if I catch myself with a particular consistent statement, I will find the positive aspect. So if it is, I was just talking about self-worth, you know, my life matters, or my life has been, is valuable. You'll find the words that are right for you. But you take the negative, you bring it over to its positive aspect, and then you can, when you catch yourself with the negative self-talk, replace it with a positive, and replace it with a positive, replace it with a positive. And over time, that negative dialogue will quiet or cease. Not entirely, because I still will catch myself where I'm like, okay. But then that too, I'm consciously aware of my thoughts. So then where's this thought coming from, and how can I adjust that?
And there's the power in knowing that in moments like that, where you've become aware that it's an internal dialogue, that it's not somebody outside of you saying you're worthless. It's all in here, and you have the power to control what's in here.
But I would still argue that's still energy that was dumped on us, because no baby is born into this world feeling less than. We do this to each other unknowingly. We do not do it to hurt our children or the people around us. We don't know. It's just like what we do. And so even those words, and what I like to tell people is, if you listen close enough, you may even hear if it's a male or female voice, and then who originally gave you that thought. So still recognizing it's external energy that we have taken on inadvertently into our own energy, so we can pull it out of our ears, pull it from the crown, exhale it out, whatever feels right for you. It isn't yours. Here's the thing, if it isn't true, it isn't you. So
sometimes I'm thinking during this conversation, I just want to say, be your own best friend.
Yeah.
Be your own best friend, because, I mean, when it comes down to it, what it all amounts to, your happiness is really up to you. So the best way to do that is learn to be your own best friend. And it's okay to be your own best friend.
be kind, be gentle, be compassionate with you first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, you might start looking to the world with a different set of eyes. So
Shift to perspective.
When you're having, you know, back to that power, so the power within you, if it's playing internally, you have the power to release that. If it's external, somebody saying it to you, you have the power to say, that's not mine.
Close your ears.
mm-hmm.
You also have the power to, and I know this is a more advanced topic, but reprogram the thoughts that go through you.
Sure.
As part of your inner child work and in your internal work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're getting the negative programming, put that positive in there for yourself. You know, so, you know, it's really neat that I mean, as far as me personally, how I've learned so much. and how I can handle things differently and not be beat up all the time.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
Yeah. We don't have to take everybody's words as though it's gospel.
Yeah, because if we get to write our own story, and I don't like the way it sounds in my head, I'm gonna change it.
Yeah,
Rewrite the story.
absolutely.
And if you go by who you truly are, not, we've all made mistakes, but the true essence of your beautiful being, yeah, it's a beautiful story to write. All right, you ready?
Yep, I'm done.
So with that, we will see you next time on The Bare Soul.
Thank you for joining us.
Have a peaceful night.